Hello everyone, I cordially welcome you all to another video from the React tutorial series, and in this video we are going to discuss on higher order components in React. So without any delay, let's get started. So before I discuss about higher order components with you, I would like to talk with you about higher order functions. So what are higher order functions? In JavaScript, higher order functions are basically functions that either accept other functions as its arguments or return a function as a result, or maybe both. In JavaScript, there are multiple higher order functions that are available by default. Here in the screen, you can see just one of them. So as per the example, there is an array ARR which takes in a number of values from 1 to 5. Thereafter, we map over the array, take individual item and return the product of that item to itself. Basically, we return the square of the number. And finally, we stored that in the data variable and console.log the data. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yields us 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. So you can definitely understand that each of these numbers basically returns their square. Okay. So this is what higher order functions are. Now let's proceed to learn about higher order components. In React, higher order components are components which takes a component as its argument, performs some operations and returns another component. Now you would ask why I talked about higher order functions before higher order components. This is so because in React, components are basically functions. If I talk about functional components, which is like the most preferable way of using components in React. So in React, we mostly use functional components, and functional components are basically simple JavaScript functions only. They just return us a JSX which gets rendered on the UI rather than any perfect value like normal JavaScript functions. So basically higher order components has some similarity with higher order functions. So if you understand the fact that higher order functions takes a function as an argument or might return a function as a result or maybe both, similarly you will understand that higher order components are also components which accepts components as its argument, performs some operations and then return another component. So this is a very brief theory about higher order components. There is something more which we would learn later after some time, but let us see an example first. So welcome to the VS Code. Here we are going to realize how we can implement a higher order component. So firstly, if you can see, we have created a folder or a directory named HOC, basically the abbreviation of higher order component. And here I have created a file index.tsx. Within this, we have two basically functional components. Okay, we have imported React and FC from the React library. Thereafter, we have created an interface message which has a property ID and another property message. Now here I have put up a question mark because this ID property, which can be of type number, is optional. Thereafter, we have our main functional component showAlert. It basically receives a message which will be of type message, and thereafter we print the message on the UI in red color. We have just implemented an inline CSS over here. This is basically just a simple functional component. How do we implement higher order component? So as I have already told, higher order components are nothing but normal functional components only. So what we have basically done over here, we have defined a functional component named as higher order component. This component accepts a component and this component in turn accepts a message type of argument. Now we destructured the ID from the message. Now here we are conditional rendering. If ID is present, we return the component with the props passed. But if not, then we render on the UI that message ID is missing. Okay, so if you are not clear, I am explaining this thing again. We have defined a higher order component. It will accept a component as an argument and the message as a props. Thereafter, we have destructured the ID from this message, and as you can see, this ID can be optional. So if ID is present, we return the component with all the props passed. If not, we basically show on the UI in h1 tag that message ID is missing. In our main parent component app.tsx, we basically import the higher order component and call it within the div. When we call this higher order component, in short HOC, we pass the ID and the message. So if everything works fine, we should see this message, basically what we have passed here, hello, welcome to tutorials in hand on the UI. But in case if we don't pass the ID, we should see message ID is missing. So let's run our application and check if it's working. So we will go to the terminal and write npm start to run our application. Let's wait for some time until our application starts. So as you can see, our application has started and we can see hello, welcome to tutorials in hand. Now how does this work? First of all, it calls HOC from our parent component, passing ID and the message. Within our child component, our higher order component basically wraps the main functional component. What will happen when this show alert will be called? It will accept this component and its props. Then it will destructure the ID and check if this ID is present. So as the ID is present, we are rendering the component with the props passed. But if it's not the case, we show message ID is missing. So as of now, as we are passing the ID, we see hello, welcome to tutorials in hand. Now let's do a small task. Let's remove this ID 1. Now what should happen? Basically, this higher order component will see this ID is absent. This ID will be undefined. So undefined will evaluate to a falsy value and thus we will see message ID is missing. So yes, as per the expectation, we are getting message ID is missing on the UI. So our higher order component is working fine. Okay, now let's go back to the slide and learn some key points about higher order components. Higher order components must be pure component. Neither we must perform side effects in higher order components, nor we should mutate the component which has been passed to it as argument. We can only perform some operation in higher order component and return a new component. Point number 2, higher order components must not be called in render method for class components. Higher order components must not be invoked within the render method of the class component. This is so because every time the class component re-renders, the higher order component will be called, leading to a poor app performance. As we pass props from the enhanced component to the wrapped child component, the same is impossible with refs because in React, refs are not actually handled like the props. To mitigate this issue, we need to use forward refs. These are the 3 important things which you must remember while working with higher order components. Okay? So I hope you like this video. In case you like it, feel free to hit the like button and please subscribe to our channel. We are going to bring more videos in the future. For any queries, doubts, feedbacks or suggestions, feel free to post them in the comment section. We are going to reply. So thank you for now. See you in the next video. Bye.